LWCAD LITE, windows and doors. In this video, I'll show you how you can create your own custom parametric windows and doors and store them into library. First, I'll show you how simply you can store this object in library. Then I'll show you additional parameters which you can set for these objects. I'll show you how to set custom wall. Then I'll show you difference between front and front back wall type of the object. I'll show you how you can set intervals and how they are beneficial to use with windows and doors. I'll show you how you can customize your drilling hole. I'll show you two rectangle, how to set your custom two rectangle and how it can be useful. And finally, I'll show you how to create windows and doors objects with instances to another library object from LWCAD, for example, elements. First, I'll show you how to add simple window object. So adding windows and doors into LWCAD library is very simple process, and it is identical in all three platforms, 3D Studio Max, Cinema and Lightwave. This simple case, I'll show you all three platforms, and the rest of the video I will be using only 3D Studio Max. In 3D Studio Max, first you need to select object which you are going to add to library. So I'll select this window object, and this object must be editable mesh. If it is not editable mesh, then you have to convert it. Next step, you need to activate Add Shape to Library tool from LWCAD tab. Then you need to choose library type. We are going to add to window library type. Then you need to click into viewport, which will be your base viewport. So I will click into top viewport. So top viewport is chosen. These OpenGL buttons are for additional parametric options. We leave it as a default for this simple case. And last step will be to saving this object in library. So I will create a new directory, testing, for these tests. And with Save Shape button, we save this as a window max. And window object is stored in library. Now you can browse it here in test folder. We have this Windows Max. In Cinema, process is exactly same. You need to select object in the scene, same window object. It must be polygonal object, of course. Then activate Add to Lib tool. Now select library type, again window, then choose viewport. I will click into top viewport. Top viewport is selected, and just save shape. I will choose active directory as a test and save shape as a window C4D. Finally, in Lightwave, same procedure, just activate Add to Archviz tool, click into top viewport, and in a numeric panel I will choose library type test, and here is not, it is a little bit older version, so here instead of save shape it is Add Shape button, but it's same window Lightwave. So as you can see here, we have three identical windows stored in three different ports, but it is exactly same. Next, I'll show you difference between front wall and front back wall type of the object. So when we are adding window or door object into library, we can set shape type to front wall and front back wall. Example of front wall object is this simple window. When I place this simple window on the wall, you can see in the top viewport that it is aligned to the front wall. And we can also change offset parameter, and with this offset parameter we can move it along the wall depth. So we can put object inside the wall or outside the wall. Let's add this same window object into library again. So again with Add to Lip tool, clicking to top viewport, and now we will add it a little bit differently. So we set the front wall position into different levels. So with Set Wall OpenGL button here, we can change front wall position from this library object, let's say here on this position, and save it with this adjusted front wall position. So I will save it as a window offset. Now let's compare both versions on the wall. So when we apply window offset library object, you can see the offset is here from the front wall, even if we have offset parameter set to 0. With previous window max version, there is no offset. When we use window offset version, there is the offset. And of course, still we can adjust offset additionally. So from this initial offset, we can add more offset into both sides. Example of front back wall type of the object is this door frame. So when you apply this frame on the wall, you can see the object is stretched from the front wall to the back wall, and we don't have offset parameter available in window tool. And how to add it to library? Same way, just select object, use Add to Library tool, and click into top viewport. And don't forget to change shape type option from front wall to front back wall. And now you can see the default position of front wall and back wall is here in the perspective viewport. You can see these two rectangles. And with the Set Wall OpenGL button, you can adjust these front wall and back wall positions. So I will apply Set Wall, and we can, with first click, we can set that front wall will be here. With second click, we set back wall will be here. So that way you can see again in perspective viewport, here is front wall, here is back wall. And when we add this as a door frame into library, anytime we use this door frame on the wall, it is always adjusted to the thickness of the wall. So as you can see, front wall of the object is always on the right position, and the middle part is stretched to the wall. Intervals. Another options in a window and a door library type are intervals. When we add this window into library again, now with intervals. So we set intervals for this window. When we activate interval OpenGL button, we can set here X, Y, and Z axis. So let's set intervals for X axis. If I set first interval along X axis here, this first part of the frame, and second part of the frame, same for Y axis. Here first interval, second intervals. So this interval, each interval means that this range along X and Y axis will be frozen when this object will be stretched. So this, let's say 10 centimeters or something like this, will be always 10 centimeters on the beginning and on the end of this frame, and rest of the window will be stretched. So let's add this into library, the test library, and save this preset as a window intervals. And let's try this new object with intervals. So first we'll try the window version. Windows previous version without intervals, you can see window is stretching as a whole object. Nothing is frozen, nothing is fixed. When we change to window with intervals, you can see now frame is fixed on the ends along X and along Y axis. So that is the purpose of these intervals. So we keep these frames not deformed, only inner glass is scaled. Let's add also this previous door frame with intervals. So setting shape type front, back, setting wall, beginning of the wall, end of the wall, and now intervals. For the intervals, we set interval along X, here from the left side of the frame and from the right side of the frame, and along Y axis, here this small part of the bottom and top part of the frame here. And we can set also intervals along Z axis, it means along depth of the wall. So for the Z axis, we set frozen intervals from the beginning of the wall to the end here, and also for the back wall, freeze this interval from the beginning of the wall to the end of the door frame, and add this into library, save shape. Door frame object without intervals. Here is a case on 3 versions of walls. You can see the extended part of the door frame is scaling depend of the depth of the wall. And if we use door frame with intervals on different wall depth, you can see here in the top viewport that this extended part of the frame is always fixed. It is always same dimension with different wall depths. Next very useful addition to window or door library object is custom hole. So when we are adding, let's say, this arc window into library, we can set a custom hole for this object. By default, it is this rectangle, which is in fact outlined bounding box of the object. And for this arc, it is not right. But I will save also this version of arc with default. So arc default hole. And I will save also another version with custom hole. Custom hole you can set with this OpenGL button a hole, and you can use rectangle or polyline option. With rectangle you just click one corner, second corner, and new hole is defined. And with a polyline you can set each point. I will be very quick with this, not precise, just to outline it very roughly. You better do this more precisely to each point. But now you can see this red line is our hole, and a white rectangle defines the rectangle tool. So now I will add this into library as arc custom hole. And now we put this window on the wall, and clearly you can see the difference. This is previous version with default hole, this is version with custom hole. So you can see this is default hole, here is our custom polyline hole, not very nice. Another very useful option is tool rectangle. So when we add this door frame into library again, and we will set also tool rectangle, I will set tool rectangle inside this hole of the frame. And we need to also set other options, such as intervals. And also front wall, back wall. Here is front wall. Front wall, you know, always the front wall is there where these crosses are. This is, you see, these crosses in perspective. And I will save it into library as a door frame tool rect. And when we put this new door frame tool rectangle object with window on the wall, you can see that two of the window is same place where we stored our custom rectangle tool in this library object. And why is this so useful? One of the use is we can do multi-layer objects. This was the frame, and we can add another layer with a window, and window has usually two rectangles around the window, so you can now do a multi-layer objects of windows and doors with custom rectangle tools, so these layers will fit one each to other. And finally, I will show you how to add this window with instance to another library object. So this window is a mesh, polygonal mesh, and I will add this element tool, element primitive, here on the, as it usually should be. Okay, so now we have two objects, one window frame, polygonal mesh, and second, this element primitive object, which is still live, it is not frozen into polygons. And we can add both these objects into library. So use add to library, into window, library, set intervals. We need to set intervals, so you will see how it works together with intervals, because there is big difference. So I will set just x, y intervals on the frame and add into library. Window instance. And I will save these two objects also after converting into mesh. So now it is converted into mesh and this element object is not live anymore. Both objects are plain mesh objects. So select both and add to library. Same way we need to set intervals, so it will be identical. And add into library. And finally, let's try these instances. So when I use the object with handle stored as a mesh, which is converted into mesh, then when window is stretching, also handle is stretching, because it is now a mesh, and a part which is out of range of interval, then this part is stretching together with window. When I use window which handle is stored as instance, this was not frozen into mesh. This version handle is keeping its dimensions, because only pivot point of this handle would be stretched together with window, but the pivot is lying in the range of interval here in the frame, so handle is not moving at all, not stretching, and that is something we need for these elements.